Picture this. You wake up one morning feeling like you're in your 40s again, full of energy, sharp mind, and that spark with your partner that you thought was just gone. Sounds too good to be true, right? I know. But stay with me here, because what I'm about to share with you might completely change the way you think about aging, vitality, and intimacy after 60. I'm Dr. Claire Weston, and I've spent over 20 years working with older adults, mostly men, who came into my office feeling like the best years of their life were behind them. Tired all the time. Low drive, circulation issues that nobody wanted to talk about out loud. And almost every single one of them assumed that's just what getting older looks like. That you hit 60, maybe 65, and you just accept the slowdown. Well, I'm here today to tell you that is not the whole story. Because after 2 decades of practice, thousands of patient conversations, and a whole lot of research, I kept noticing something. The men who were aging the best, staying active, keeping that closeness with their wives or partners, waking up with energy, they weren't necessarily on a bunch of medications or following some complicated protocol. A lot of them had simple, consistent dietary habits, and certain fruits kept showing up over and over again. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, Doc, you're going to tell me to eat more fruit? Just hang tight, because we're not talking about generic healthy eating advice here. We're talking about 5 specific fruits that have real documented effects on blood flow, hormonal balance, and yes, sexual health in older men. Fruits that work with your body's natural systems, not against them. And here's the thing I really want you to understand before we dive in. I know some of you have watched health content online and felt confused because one video says something is good, another says it's bad. I hear you. I actually want to address that directly today, especially when we get to number 1 on this list, because there is important context that most people leave out. So stick around for that. Let's get into it. 5 powerful fruits that can help men over 60 reclaim their circulation, their energy, and their intimacy. Let's count them down. Coming in at number 5, cranberries. I'll be honest with you. For a long time, I associated cranberries with Thanksgiving dinner and not much else, just that tart little sauce next to the turkey. But my perspective shifted years ago when I started paying closer attention to which of my older male patients were maintaining the best urinary health, the best energy levels, and interestingly, the most consistent intimate lives well into their 70s. Cranberries kept coming up. Here's what's actually happening in your body. As men get older, kidney function naturally starts to decline. Slowly, gradually, but it happens. And when the kidneys aren't filtering the way they should, toxins build up in the bloodstream. Inflammation increases. Circulation to the lower body, including the pelvic region, starts to suffer. And that has a direct effect on erectile function, on sensitivity, on drive. Cranberries are packed with compounds, particularly proanthocyanins, that protect the kidneys and the urinary tract. They reduce inflammation, keep the blood vessels around the pelvis in better shape, and support the kind of clean, free-flowing circulation that your body needs to perform at its best, if you know what I mean. In my experience, roughly 7 out of 10 men who add cranberries consistently to their diet report noticeable improvement in urinary symptoms within a few weeks. Less urgency, less discomfort, better sleep because they're not up 3 times a night. And that matters more than people realize because poor sleep tanks your testosterone levels, your mood, your energy, all the stuff that feeds into intimacy. Now here's the practical part because I know you want to know how to actually use this stuff. A handful of dried cranberries in your morning oatmeal works great. Unsweetened cranberry juice, about a half cup, is another solid option. Just watch out for the sweetened versions with a ton of added sugar because that's going to work against you. If you can find pure, no sugar added cranberry juice at your local grocery store, Whole Foods, Kroger, even Walmart usually carries it, that's your best bet. Moving on to number 4, it's cherries. Now cherries I love, and not just because they taste amazing. Because when you look at the science behind what cherries do for circulation and inflammation in older men, it's genuinely impressive. I want to tell you about a patient of mine. I'll call him David, a retired police officer from outside of Dallas. Came to see me in his late 60s, big guy, proud, not the type to talk about personal stuff easily, but eventually he opened up, said he felt disconnected from his body. Slow. Like the energy that used to be just there automatically, the kind that let him be present with his wife, engaged, alive, just wasn't showing up anymore. He'd tried a couple things, nothing stuck. We talked about his diet, made a few changes. One of the simplest ones was adding a cup of fresh or frozen cherries every evening, just as a snack or dessert after dinner. Nothing complicated. About 6 weeks later, he came back, and I gotta say, the difference was visible before he even opened his mouth. He sat up straighter. There was color in his face. He told me things had shifted in a way he hadn't expected. Here's why that happens. Cherries, especially tart cherries and dark sweet cherries, are loaded with anthocyanins. These are powerful antioxidants that do a couple of really important things. First, they reduce arterial inflammation, and inflamed arteries are stiff arteries. Stiff arteries mean reduced blood flow. Reduced blood flow means exactly what you think it means for a man's intimate health. Second, anthocyanins boost nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is the molecule that relaxes and dilates blood vessels, allowing more blood to flow through. This is actually the same mechanism that erectile dysfunction medications target. But cherries do it naturally, without the side effects, without the cost, without needing a prescription. For men specifically, improved blood flow means stronger, more sustained erections. Plain and simple. Better vascular health in the pelvic region equals better function. That's just physiology. And there's a bonus here that a lot of people overlook. Cherries contain natural melatonin. That means they help you sleep better. And better sleep means better testosterone regulation, lower cortisol, reduced stress. All of which feed directly into your desire, your mood, your willingness to be close with your partner. It's a chain reaction, and cherries kick it off. Fresh cherries are fantastic when they're in season. Summer months, you can find them everywhere at farmers markets and grocery stores across the country. But frozen tart cherries work just as well and are available year-round. Tart cherry juice is another great option. About 8 ounces before bed is something I've recommended to many of my patients. Number 3 on our list, papaya. Papaya might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you're walking through the produce section at the store. A lot of guys I work with kind of pass right by it. But I want you to stop and pick one up next time, because this fruit is doing something really specific that matters a lot for older men. Let me tell you about another patient. Retired high school principal, mid-60s, let's call him Robert, from the Phoenix area. Robert came to me exhausted, not just physically tired, but that deep bone-level fatigue where you wake up already drained. His sleep was poor. His intimacy with his wife had basically stopped, and he told me he felt guilty about it but didn't know where to start. We didn't overhaul his whole life at once. We made one change at a time. One of the first was adding papaya to his morning routine, just a cup of fresh papaya mixed into plain Greek yogurt. Simple. He could do it in 2 minutes. A few weeks in, he called me, and this guy was not a phone call type of person, to say something had changed. More energy in the mornings. Better mental clarity. And then a month after that, he came in, and there was this quiet confidence about him that hadn't been there before. What's happening physiologically is this. Papaya is an excellent source of vitamins A, C, and E, all of which play roles in vascular health and hormone regulation. But the real differentiator is papain, the enzyme unique to papaya. Papain has powerful anti-inflammatory and digestive properties that reduce systemic inflammation, which in older men often contributes to testosterone suppression. When inflammation drops, the body becomes more efficient at producing and utilizing testosterone. On top of that, papaya improves the flexibility of blood vessel walls and supports better oxygen delivery to tissues throughout the body, including the tissues that matter most for erectile function. We're talking about more consistent, more reliable performance over time, not a one-time fix, a real sustainable improvement. And for men who struggle with digestive issues, which honestly is a lot of guys over 60, papaya's enzymatic properties help with that too. Better digestion means better nutrient absorption, which means your body is actually getting what it needs from everything else you eat. Fresh papaya is available at most major grocery stores. Look for ones that are slightly soft to the touch and have an orange-yellow skin. If you can't find fresh frozen papaya chunks, work great in a smoothie. And yes, you can absolutely blend these fruits together. In fact, a lot of my patients do exactly that. They combine papaya, cranberries, cherries, and the fruits I'm about to mention into one morning smoothie. It's an easy, practical way to get all of this in without it feeling like a chore. Quick question for you while we're here. Drop a comment below and let me know. Are you more focused right now on boosting your overall energy and stamina, or is improving intimacy and connection with your partner the bigger priority for you? I read every single comment, and your answers genuinely help me figure out what to cover next. So let me know. Type 1 for energy, type 2 for intimacy. Number 2, pomegranate. And this one is something I feel strongly about. There's a reason pomegranate has been revered across cultures for thousands of years. Ancient Greece, Persia, across the Mediterranean, as a symbol of vitality and life, because it delivers. And modern science has spent the last couple of decades finally catching up to what people instinctively knew for centuries. I want to tell you about a couple I worked with. Let's call them Jim and Carol, both in their early 70s, married for over 40 years, living in the Chicago suburbs. Jim was a former engineer, methodical guy. When he came to see me, he laid it out like a problem statement. He and his wife still cared deeply about each other, still laughed together, still had a good life, but the physical closeness had faded. And he said quietly that Carol hadn't said anything about it, but he knew she missed it, and so did he. I introduced pomegranate into Jim's daily routine, just a handful of fresh pomegranate seeds every morning, or 4 to 6 ounces of pure pomegranate juice. Nothing else changed at first. What happened over the next 2 months Jim described as gradual but real. More energy, better mood. And then, the thing he came back to tell me about. A reconnection with Carol that he said felt like something unlocking that had been stuck for years. Here's the science. Pomegranates are extraordinarily rich in polyphenols, plant compounds that do something very specific and very powerful. They improve the elasticity of blood vessel walls and dramatically stimulate nitric oxide production. We talked about nitric oxide with the cherries. Same mechanism here, but even more potent. In men, this translates directly to improved erectile function. Multiple clinical studies have shown that regular pomegranate juice consumption correlates with measurable improvements in erectile quality. We're talking real, peer-reviewed research, not just anecdotes, but there's another layer here that I think gets overlooked. Pomegranates actively reduce cortisol, the stress hormone. In men over 60, cortisol levels are often chronically elevated, which suppresses testosterone, kills libido, and creates this constant low-level anxiety that makes emotional closeness feel difficult. At the same time, pomegranate compounds support serotonin production, so you're simultaneously lowering the hormone that works against you and raising the neurotransmitter that makes you feel calm, open, and connected. That's a 1-2 punch that no medication really replicates. For cardiovascular health, which is foundational to everything we're talking about, pomegranate has been shown to reduce arterial plaque buildup. A healthier heart means better circulation everywhere in the body. This stuff works from the inside out. Pure pomegranate juice is widely available. Pom. Wonderful is the brand you'll find at basically every grocery store in America. Fresh pomegranate seeds are great sprinkled over yogurt or oatmeal. When you're buying the juice, just make sure the label says 100% pomegranate juice. No added sugar, no blends. That's when you're getting the real benefit. And now, number 1, red grapes. Okay, before I tell you why red grapes top this list, I need to address something directly, because I know some of you have seen health content, maybe even from other channels, where grapes were described as bad for men, particularly for prostate health. And if you've seen that, and then you're watching me put red grapes at number 1 on a list for men's health, you're probably thinking, what is going on here? Here's the honest answer, and I think this context is really important. The concern about grapes and prostate health relates primarily to men who already have prostate issues, particularly elevated PSA levels or active prostate conditions, because grapes are high in natural sugars and certain compounds that, in that specific context, may not be ideal in large quantities. That is a legitimate, nuanced point. But, and this is a big but, for men whose primary concern is cardiovascular circulation and erectile function, and who do not have active prostate conditions, red grapes are genuinely one of the most powerful foods available. These are 2 different clinical contexts. And collapsing them into a simple grapes are good or grapes are bad misses the whole picture. This is exactly why working with your own doctor matters. What's right for you depends on your specific health situation. I'm giving you the research and the framework. You apply it to your life with your physician's guidance. Now, why are red grapes number 1 on this list for circulation and intimacy? The answer is one word: resveratrol. Resveratrol is a polyphenol found predominantly in the skin of red grapes, and it is one of the most well-studied compounds in cardiovascular and men's health research. It does several things simultaneously that make it uniquely valuable for older men. First, it relaxes and widens blood vessels, a process called vasodilation, which allows oxygen-rich blood to flow more freely to the heart, the brain, the muscles, and yes, to the pelvic region. For men over 60, this is critical because aging naturally causes blood vessels to stiffen and narrow, and the lower body is often the first place where that reduced circulation shows up, in the form of cold feet, fatigue, and reduced erectile function. Second, resveratrol specifically increases nitric oxide synthesis in the vascular endothelium, the inner lining of blood vessels. We've talked about nitric oxide a couple of times today because it keeps coming up for a reason. It is the fundamental molecule behind healthy erections. You can't separate vascular health from sexual health in older men. They are the same conversation. Third, and this is what I find particularly compelling, resveratrol has been shown in research to mimic some of the effects of caloric restriction on the body, essentially activating longevity pathways that slow cellular aging. We're talking about the same biological mechanisms that researchers study in the context of living longer, healthier lives. And those mechanisms show up meaningfully in sexual health too. I had a patient and retired contractor, 71 years old, lived outside of Nashville, who came to me after his doctor had basically shrugged and said, "This is just part of getting older." He was frustrated, not defeated, but frustrated. He didn't buy it, and honestly, I didn't either. We talked about diet, added red grapes as a consistent daily snack, about a cup in the afternoon, something he actually enjoyed. Didn't feel like medicine, didn't feel like a chore, just tasted good. 4 months later, this man was different, more energy, sleeping better, and he told me with a big grin that his wife had noticed a change she hadn't expected. He said, "Doc, I feel like myself again." And that right there, that's why I do this work. A cup of red grapes in the afternoon, a small glass of red grape juice, no sugar added. That's all it takes to start getting resveratrol into your system consistently. And consistency is everything here. None of this is about a dramatic 1-week transformation. It's about sending your body the same message every day. I'm investing in this. I'm choosing circulation, energy, and connection. Now let me bring it all together for you, because I want to make this as practical as possible. You've got 5 fruits: cranberries, cherries, papaya, pomegranate, and red grapes. Each one works through a slightly different mechanism: kidney protection, arterial inflammation, hormonal balance, nitric oxide production, and vascular elasticity. But they all point toward the same outcome: better blood flow, better energy, better function, and better connection with your partner. And here's the question I get a lot, so let me just answer it now. Can you combine these into a smoothie? Absolutely yes. In fact, I encourage it. A lot of my patients blend frozen cherries, cranberries, a handful of red grapes, and papaya chunks together in the morning with some Greek yogurt or almond milk. Throw in some pomegranate juice as the liquid base instead of water, and you've just hit all 5 in one go. Easy, quick, and honestly pretty delicious. You don't need to do all 5 at once right away. If this feels like a lot, just pick the one that resonates most with you and start there. Maybe it's red grapes because you already like them. Maybe it's tart cherry juice before bed because you've been struggling with sleep. Maybe it's pomegranate juice in the morning. Start somewhere. Build from there. What matters, what has always mattered in my 20+ years of practice, is consistency over perfection. And I want to say something to the men watching this who might be a little skeptical. Maybe you've tried things before and they didn't work. Maybe you've been told to just accept this as part of aging. Maybe you're watching this because someone who loves you shared it with you and you're doing it for them more than yourself. All of that is fine. You don't have to be convinced right now. Just try one thing. Give it a few weeks, pay attention to how your body responds, because here's what I've seen over and over again in my practice. The body wants to heal. It wants to circulate well, sleep well, feel well. When you give it the right inputs consistently, it responds. Not magically, not overnight, but it responds. I've seen men in their mid-70s reconnect with their partners in ways they genuinely did not think were possible. I've seen guys who wrote off that part of their lives come back in and tell me they were wrong to give up. You are not too old. The question is just whether you're willing to make a few small, sustainable changes. A cup of red grapes in the afternoon, frozen cherries before bed, a morning smoothie with papaya and pomegranate juice, a handful of dried cranberries in your oatmeal. None of this is complicated. None of it is expensive. And all of it is backed by real research on real outcomes in men's health. Your health is the greatest asset you've got, more valuable than anything in your retirement account, more important than any other investment you're going to make. And it is worth the 5 minutes it takes to grab some grapes at the grocery store. If this video was useful to you, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content who need it. Share it with a buddy, your brother, your father, whoever in your life you think might benefit. And subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next, because we've got a lot more ground to cover. I'm Dr. Claire Weston. I'm grateful you spent this time with me today. Take care of yourself, because you've spent a lifetime showing up for everyone else. It's your turn now.